Still have to keep working at it to make sure it happens. And all of the attacks that they make on women, they attack women, they call us probably Nazis, they attack the LGBT community, they attack people of color. And I really do believe that the reason that they do that is because they don't want, the opposition, the right wing, they attack us on these cultural issues. Because they don't really want to talk about the real issues, which are the economic issues. And this is what labor is all about, the economic issues, because we have this huge, as we know, income inequality, where you have 1%, and I know Bernie keeps talking about the 1%. Well, that 1% in our country, they own 50% of the wealth of our country, 1%. Then if you take these wealthy families like Walmart, and by the way, friends do not let friends shop at Walmart, okay? And you've got 50% of these wealthy corporations, plus the wealthy families that own 90% of the wealth of the United States of America. 90% of the wealth. Can you imagine that? And it's like, Mahatma Gandhi, who was just celebrating his 150th year of his birthday. Gandhi said, we have enough resources to fill the need. There are never enough resources to fill the greed.
It's true.
And that's pretty much what we are up against, the greed in our country. And when they say that we do not have enough money for universal health care, we don't have enough money for free college tuition. Wait a minute, what are they talking about? We, in the United States, we are the richest country in the world. The richest country in the world. And when you can have other countries, like in Europe, or a little teeny country in Cuba, Cuba has an economic boycott by the United States of America. But what do they have that we do not have?
Healthcare.
They have free medical care for every single person in Cuba. Not only that, but they have free college for every single person in Cuba. So if this little teeny country like Cuba, which is so poor, but they can provide that for their citizens, then we in the United States should be able to do the same thing also. We should. And so when they use that word socialism, the S word, they want to scare people with the word socialism. Well, what does that mean? That means that we have to share the resources of this country with everybody, not just for the few. It should be shared by everybody here in the United States. And I know that this is what labor is about. This is what the labor unions are about. And we know that labor unions, like the rest of the groups that I mentioned, are under constant attack because they don't want us to organize. And that's what it's all about. We know that without labor unions, number one, you don't have a middle class in the United States of America. And our middle class is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking because of the attacks on labor. And not only that, but if we do not have a labor union, like we don't have a middle class, guess what? We don't have a democracy. We do not have a democracy.
Right.
And yet we know that there is so much ignorance out there, and even about labor. As I go around the country, and I speak at a lot of colleges and high school and community groups, and I always ask the question, how many of you in the audience know how we got the 8-hour day? Maybe one hand will pop up in the audience. And I'd like to remind them, the way we got the 8-hour day is that there were labor leaders that fought for the 8-hour day, way back in Chicago at the turn of the last century. And what happened to those labor leaders? What happened to those men that fought for 8-hour day? They were executed. They were hung. People don't know that. And they don't realize that every single economic benefit that workers have today, Social Security, workers' compensation, disability insurance, public education, all of the safety standards were fought for and they were won by labor unions, okay? So when they want to attack labor unions, just remind them of that. When we talk to these labor, remind them of that. And so we've got to start incorporating some of this knowledge into our educational systems. Because the reason that I believe we're in this position right now is because of the ignorance. And somebody asked me once, a student, what would you say to Donald Trump? And I would say to him, get an education, okay? And I have to tell you that I feel sorry for Donald Trump because, number one, unfortunately, he didn't get to grow up like I did with different ethnic groups. Like when I grew up in Stockton, California, because my neighbors were Greek immigrants and Italian immigrants and Filipino immigrants, people from Japan and China. My neighbors were African Americans, so I was really blessed. He didn't have that advantage. Not only that, but the man does not know how to work.
Amen.
He was always wealthy, so he has been very, very deprived. So, in a way, I guess we kind of want to feel sorry for him, even if we feel like we don't, right? But, the other thing that we really have to include in our curriculum is the real history of the United States of America. Number one, who built the White House and the Congress? African slaves. That's not in our curriculum. And who built the infrastructure of the country? And it was the immigrants from Mexico and Japan and China and India and the Philippines and all of these immigrant groups that came here to build this country. And we've got to start teaching that in our schools, starting with kindergarten, okay? Starting with kindergarten. Because if we're going to erase this stigma of racism in our society, we've got to start teaching our children, and our children of color deserve to know what their people have done so that they can have the dignity that they deserve in our country. And I would think that we can be proud of the fact that we are somehow growing in the United States of America these white nationalists. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, racism is a sickness. It's an illness. This is what it is. But this illness is now taking on very dangerous forms, as we know. And as people of color, we know it's always been there. I guess the one thing we can say right now, well, maybe in a way it's good now that it is so visible, because now we know we have to do something about it, okay? And we have to start, and a lot of this, by the way, is just science. Okay? And I'm just going to say that, when we have to remind people that we are one human race. Only one human. We have a lot of different cultures, we have a lot of different nationalities, we have a lot of different ethnic groups, but only one human race. And where did our human race begin? Somebody? Africa. We have to remind people. Our human race began in Africa. And as our human race traveled across the planet, they went to Asia, came down to the Bering Straits, to the Americas, and people lost a little bit of color, But then one of our tribes, our human tribes, they went all the way up there to Europe, up north there. So it's very cold, and they lost the color. So now they have to go to the tanning salon or to the beach to get the color back.
Ain't it the truth?
So I think we have to say, repeat, affirm, confirm every chance, every opportunity that we have to say, hey, we are all Africans of different shapes and colors, okay? We are all Africans of different shapes and colors. And to those neo-Nazis and those white nationalists, the KKK, we gotta just say to them, get over it, you're Africans, okay? And I really do hope that we have those conversations, okay? So we've got to embrace some of the racism, which is, we know, as I said, the sickness, and we have to be the healers. I know that in labor we call ourselves organizers, but I think we have to be more than organizers. We have to be the healers. We have to be the healers. So we have to have these conversations with people, even if they don't want to hear it. Even if they don't want to hear it. And we also have to bring, we still have in our families, and I'm sure a lot of us have this problem, that many of our families, our neighbors, friends, are not yet quite enlightened, okay? They still don't understand that, hey, if a person wants to marry someone of their own sex or fall in love with, that is their business. It doesn't affect anybody else, okay? And there was a great president of Mexico named Benito Juarez, and he had a statement. I'm going to say it in Spanish first. El respeto al derecho ajeno es la paz. What does that mean? Respecting other people's rights is peace. Who you fall in love with, that's your business, that's your human right. How many children you want to have, that is your human right. Women, yes, we need to defend women's right to abortion. Women have to have that right to choose. As you saw, so those of you who saw the documentary, I had 11 children. That was my choice, okay? But I do respect women's right to choose, women's right to abortion. My daughter Juanita, whom you also saw in the documentary, if you saw it, she doesn't have any kids. She prefers dogs, okay? Because they don't talk back. So we shouldn't be afraid to bring up those conversations, because I know that every woman in this room is a leader. Every woman in this room is a leader. And then, you know, Coretta Scott King said this: we will never have peace in the world until women take power. We will never have peace in the world until women take power. Now, I have amended that statement with Coretta's permission to say we will never have peace in the world until feminists take power. Okay? Because a feminist is somebody who is going to stand up for immigrants' rights, for workers' rights, for reproductive rights, for LGBTQ rights, and of course somebody who believes in global warming. So I know that the men in the room here are also feminists. We want to thank them for being here with us, okay? But in order to take that power, we're going to have to work very, very hard to do that. And I do think that the only way we can do that is by we as women getting out there, really organizing, make sure that we run for office. You know, in my foundation, the Delores Fuenta Foundation, we've been working on, as Reverend Jim Lawson said, dismantling the oppression that we have in our society, dismantling the power that they have, and we've got to take that power. And one of the things that we've been working on is, of course, stopping the school-to-prison pipeline. And this is something that is going on all over the United States of America, where young people of color, black and brown, are not getting the support that they should have in education. We do not have an equitable education. So if you're not doing it already, please get involved and see what's going on in your local district. But we found out, and I'm from Bakersfield, California, which is kind of like Alabama, okay? and they had expelled 2,600 students in the year and a half from the current high school district. Needless to say, they were African American kids 600 times higher than white kids. Latinos 500 times higher. Well, you know what? We sued the school district and we won. From 2,600 expulsions, last year there were only 26. From 2,600 to 26. And that's good. We had to take down some of those people, the trustees of the high school district, because they were homophobic, they were racist, you know, and of course anti-union. So this is what we have to do. Women, we have to take the power. Now I know that especially as labor women, you have a lot of work to do, but we've got to get involved in the community, because this ignorance that I'm talking about that we have to erase, it also comes down to labor also. People do not know what labor does, you know? They do not know. So we've got to get out there, get ourselves invited to the Rotary Club or whatever organizations out there. Tell them the history of the labor movement, because people don't know what labor has done for people. And we've got to be able to get out there and take that power, because if we don't, it's not going to change. And we can't wait to be invited. We know that, right? We got to invite ourselves to whatever group that you can go to and start talking about these issues that are facing our communities. We've got to get out there and we've got to be the leaders and we've got to make a change. We've got to be sure that we absolutely do that. And I know it's not going to be easy, because you have your own work to do with your own organizations, and having been in the United Farm Workers, I know how difficult that is, but we just got to put that on our agenda. We just can't rest anymore right now. Things are just too critical. And we know that the census is coming up. And I want to talk about this for a minute. We've got to get out there and make sure that everybody gets counted, because a lot of people of color, especially Latinos, they are not scared. They're terrified. They are terrified because they are afraid to get counted in the census. And for each one of us Each one of us that gets counted in the census, we are worth $2,000 to our community. Because when we get counted, that money that the federal government distributes every single year, $600 billion a year, how do they decide where the money's gonna go? By how many people there are in each community. And so if we do not get counted, we're invisible. We are invisible. And what does that money go for? It goes for schools, it goes for hospitals, it goes for healthcare. And if we don't get counted, we're going to lose that money. And not only that, but for representation.
Yes.
For representation. If we want to get people that look like us, that have our values, that support labor, that support women, we got to get somebody that looks like us and has our values elected. And this is how they win, because after the census, then they do all of the redistricting, and this is how people get elected. In fact, again, our foundation, we sued our local board of supervisors because we had no Latino representation at all, even though people of color constitute over 60% of the county. And guess what? We won that lawsuit too. So this makes we have an opportunity to elect another person of color to our board of supervisors. And the board of supervisors, as we know, when it comes to county workers, are the ones that are going to decide your contracts, how much money you're going to get, what your health benefits are. So again, those are places that we have to take the power. So I just want to ask all of you, please ask your local union to start right now getting messages out to the members. Right now, no, we can't wait till April of 2020. It's going to be too late by then. Mm-hmm. Right now, we've got to start organizing and making sure that our people are committed, that they're going to get counted. And not only that, but we could go into the neighborhoods and start organizing neighborhood committees so people can go canvassing, go door to door to make sure people are counted in the census of April of 2020. Because if we don't do that, we're going to lose. And you know what else is coming up in 2020? The elections, right? Elections. So actually, we got to get a little heads up. If we can go out there and organize our communities and our neighborhoods for the census, then they will be in place for the elections of 2020. And then we can win. Okay? We can win. The end thing that we want is we want to be able to win, to make sure that we get women, feminists that are going to be representative of the issues and values that we have. And we know that we can do it. There was a Spanish philosopher named Jose Ortega y Gasset. This was in Spain before the dictator Franco took over. And he wrote a book called The Revolution of the Masses. And his thesis in his book was that if the citizens of a country are not educated, then the powerful and the greedy will rule. Sure. And that is where we're at. Mm-hmm. That is where we're at in our United States of America right now. The greedy and the powerful are ruling this government right now. And going back to what I said before, Robert Kennedy Jr., he said in a speech that I heard once, he said, when you have corporations that control a government, you have fascism. Mm-hmm. When you have workers that control a government, you have socialism. So we shouldn't be afraid of those words. We shouldn't be afraid of those words. What does that mean? That means, as I said before, the resources in our country need to be shared by everybody, not by the corporate few. And when we look at some of the salaries that these CEOs have, and they are giving themselves multi-millions of dollars, these are their salaries. And when we talk about the healthcare issues, and they keep saying, well, how are you going to pay for healthcare for all? Well, just take out the middleman, right? Take out the insurance companies, and this is how we pay for it. Yeah, we're going to have to maybe raise taxes a little bit, but it won't be that much, because these chief executive officers of these companies are paying themselves multi-millions of dollars, and that money should go for healthcare. One of my staff, she married a German, lived in Germany for a while, and she came back to work for my foundation, and she brought her son with her, and he had an illness. And so when she went to get his prescription, she was shocked. The medicine that he got in Germany was $20. The same medicine in the United States was $2,000. exact same medicine. We are getting so ripped off by these medical companies, and so I don't think we should be afraid. When they talk about that we need to kind of do some restructuring, okay, let's do it. I mean, and who has always been in the forefront of doing the restructuring of our country, the political restructuring? It's been labor. It's been labor. And now that we have all of these incredible women that are here in the labor movement, I think we could be in the forefront of the changes that need to happen. And we know how it's done. It's just done by elections, right? And the democratic process. But we don't have a lot of apathy out there. And Helen Keller, she said once, the other disease that we have in the United States that scientists have not been able to cure is apathy. Apathy. Because a lot of people feel, well, you know what? They're too busy with their lives, they're too busy with their jobs, and they think, well, I really can't get involved. But that's what we have to do. As organizers, we've got to make sure that everybody that we know can get involved and get them involved in voting, get them involved in the census, and that's how we have to do. We have to build the power from the bottom up. And I think in labor, this is our job, and that this is the job that we know how to do, and we know how to do it well. So, I just want to thank you all for having me come to your convention, and I hope to come back again someday so we